If you happen to have been living under a rock and you had no idea, Bungie released a brand new expansion to the Destiny 2 video game called The Final Shape. It was released last week, and honestly, Bungie sent me a free copy, and I was like, okay, let's play it, let's see what's going on. So, Buds is late making this video. I was just enjoying playing The Final Shape. I wanted to take the time to really enjoy it and put my thoughts together before I really tried to say, hey, this is my review for The Final Shape. So here we go. Now that I've been playing for a little over a week, these are my thoughts. So first off, before we can really kind of judge what's going on, what exactly is this expansion trying to do? So the major thing that The Final Shape is trying to do, it is trying to bring an end to what Bungie has been calling the Light and Darkness saga. This is the major story thread that has been running since Destiny 1 was first released on September 9th in 2014. However, Bungie also further clarified that this narrative arc really started with the release of Shadowkeep on October 1st, 2019. But this is the story that started from the time that we were first resurrected as Guardians, found our way to the tower guided by our ghost, and went through various missions and campaigns to topple over the enemies that have threatened the tower and the Traveler. The Light and Darkness saga is really just the story. It's telling of the conflict that lies between those that follow the light or the Traveler and follow the darkness, which was this weird entity that we weren't really sure about. But as time progressed, we learned that the reality is that light and darkness are two sides of the same coin. It's about the people that use them, whether or not it's good or evil. The second thing that The Final Shape was really trying to do is to breathe new life into this game, because let's be honest, it's existed for almost 10 years now, and it suffers from anything that lasts that long. You need to be able to bring in new life, new blood, new ideas into a franchise in order for it to continue running and remaining interesting to your audience. I think we can all admit that there have definitely been times where Destiny has been kind of lacking, or the story just hasn't been there, or the community has been very frustrated. So The Final Shape was really trying to turn the ship around on that and to bring a lot of the community back to the game in a positive way. So let's see, does The Final Shape actually accomplish this? The first thing that we want to talk about is the main narrative threads that The Final Shape is following. First, it's picking up threads that started with Shadowkeep, when we learned that not only was there this dark entity that existed, we also learned that the Pyramid Fleet has been on our doorstep quite a long time, as we discovered a new Pyramid ship on the moon. This ship had become reactivated and started emitting nightmares out into the system, which is really where all of this started. Once we learned that the fleet was there and that it was coming, we then went through many different campaigns trying to prepare for it. In Beyond Light, the Darkness Fleet had not only arrived, but had begun reaching out to us, trying to tempt us with powers of darkness. In Witch Queen, we learned that Samathun had actually figured out how to gain the light, and that she had actually done many things during the first collapse to try to thwart the Witness's plans. Then in Lightfall, we learned about the Veil, that it was this entity that is somehow connected to the Traveler, ultimately leading us to The Final Shape, where the Witness has been able to use the Veil to reconnect with the Traveler and go inside and try to combine light and darkness in order to enact its final shape upon the universe. And this is where the entire campaign for The Final Shape starts. We are trying to follow the Crow into the pale heart of the Traveler in order to make that confrontation with the Witness. When we arrive, we find that the Witness has begun changing things because its own memories are also influencing what is happening inside the Traveler. Through much of the campaign, we learn how exactly it is that we are going to fight the Witness. I streamed my entire playthrough of the Legendary campaign, and let me tell you, I really enjoyed the story that Bungie put together for The Final Shape. I enjoyed being able to see all the different elements of the story of Destiny that has been going for 10 years finally kind of all tie themselves together in one space. And then a secondary thread that really seems misunderstood by some people cool is that we're seeing Zavala finally break. We've seen over the last couple of years him have multiple times where he's faced with grief or faced with his past mistakes or faced with his belief in the Traveler, only to find that it has been lacking. And now that he's inside the Traveler and he's being mentally attacked by the Witness and its forces, he finds himself in a place where he's questioning everything. I see a lot of people have been saying that it makes no sense, this character that has been known for his stoicism, all of a sudden having these emotional moments and behaving in a way that we haven't seen him do before. But honestly, I really think this is the natural progression of his storyline, with having to reconcile the death of his wife and son in Season of the Haunted, in dealing with multiple threats to the city when the Traveler seems to remain silent and not. Now, when it comes to breathing new life, new blood, new ideas into Destiny, I think that Bungie handled this in two major ways, outside of what they normally do with introducing a new location, making massive tweaks to the sandbox, giving us new weaponry and things like that. Instead, what they've really chosen to do to make the game feel brand new is by giving us our very first completely new enemy faction that is not simply a reskin of enemies that have existed from the beginning of the game. And the second is the introduction of Prismatic. This first wholly new enemy faction in the game is called the Dread. We were introduced to one unit of this faction in Lightfall called the Tormentor. They're the big powerful units that use void attacks, they have size, they're big, they do massive damage, and they have this terrifying little hug move that, I don't know, I still can't figure out how to get out of. But in the final shape, Bungie decided to flesh out this entire enemy faction to be multiple different units and not just simply the Tormentors. We have the Attendants and Weavers, which look like they're Scion units, but instead they are using waves of stasis and strand energy. The Attendants use a wave of stasis energy in order to slow us, while the Weavers use stasis energy in order to pull us around the map. Then we also have the Grim, which are the winged units that just kind of fly around, shoot lasers at you, and they're kind of hard to keep track of sometimes. Then you have the Husk, which are more brutish type enemies, but if you don't kill them in just the right way, they spawn a whole nother little enemy that just goes and flies at you, reminiscent of the bumblebees from the Caretaker encounter in Vow of the Disciple. And then lastly, Bungie decided to add the Subjugator units. We have one called the Harbingers that wield Strand, and another one called the Omens that wield Stasis. In both cases, they have drones similar to Warlock's Arc Souls and deal a lot of damage with physical attacks. The first few times encountering these units, I definitely had to sit back and try to figure out how to play the game a little bit differently, because they don't act like the Elixni, or they don't act like the Hive. They are themselves a whole different unit doing their own thing with their own battle plans. Then, along with the Dread, like I said, Bungie also introduced the Prismatic subclasses, which I think is what Destiny really needed. Over the years, we've introduced many different abilities with adding new supers, adding new damage types, and then even with the 3.0 reworks of the light subclasses, we have a lot of abilities available to us. Prismatic breaks down those barriers and allows us to really pick and choose from a lot of different options to build our own subclass the way we want. We're no longer locked into, oh, well, because I'm playing the Night Stalker subclass, I can only use void abilities, and these are my supers. Now, we can choose to keep the Deadfall super, but we might also couple it with the Strand Grapple Grenade and the Solar Knife Trick melee. With the introduction of Prismatic, there's definitely been a breath of fresh air added to build crafting, where it's not so much, oh, I have to make sure I have this particular fragment with this particular aspect and now I'm just unbeatable. Instead, I'm really trying to figure out how to pick and choose what things to interact with all of my abilities, because they all behave differently from anything I've been used to before. And with Prismatic, there's a whole new functionality called Transcendence. The way you activate this is by first dealing damage with light damage or dark damage from either your abilities or your weapons, and those build up a new bar right under the super meter on your UI. And once this is filled up, you enter Transcendence, and not only do you receive a damage reduction and increased ability energy, you gain access to a new Transcendent Grenade. The Transcendence Grenade is a mixture of two different grenade types. For instance, the Warlock's Transcendent Grenade is actually a mixture of both the Void Vortex Grenade and the Duskfield Grenade, causing enemies to both take Void and Stasis damage at the same time, which, depending on your build with all the new fragments and aspects selected, you can do quite a bit of damage with these grenades. Well, now that I've been playing in the final shape for a little over a week now, I think I'm in a place where I can confidently say that the final shape definitely belongs in the top tier of Destiny expansions, right up there with Forsaken, the Witch Queen, and the Taken King. I'm still not completely sure which one's my favorite. I don't know that the final shape is necessarily my favorite, but it tells a great story. It introduces some awesome new mechanics and some new enemy factions. It does quite a bit. I found myself being very pleased with it, and I couldn't step away from it. I always wanted to keep coming back, trying something new. I still have tons of things that I still need to go unlock. I haven't even finished getting all the fragments for the Prismatic subclass. I really feel like the final shape has put the game in a very good place to move forward. Yes, the game as a whole still has some glaring spaces, but on the whole, I really feel like the final shape has corrected a lot of the issues that a lot of the community has brought up with regards to the game. I've found myself very curious to see where the story goes from here. I know that we still have 3 episodes left to get through for the year, and then the newly announced codename Frontiers expansion that is due next year, but I certainly don't think Destiny 2 is going anywhere anytime soon, and I think the final shape has brought this game into a place where a lot of players can really find their enjoyment that they've been seeking to find over the last several years. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you like this, please make sure that you do all the YouTube things, leave a like, comment, subscribe. It really helps out the channel and it keeps me motivated to keep making content. Mostly what I make are some tips and tricks, or occasionally we'll produce a video called Will It Tato, where we just get a random build together and we see how we can tweak it and make it better. I typically try to stream every Wednesday and Saturday in order to get some gameplay out and connect with the community. If you've got questions regarding the final shape, make sure that you leave a comment down below and let me know what you're curious about. Let me know your thoughts on the final shape. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next video.